I don't know if we ever spoke about your kind of background in golf, and I think you're definitely the first person related to golf that we've had on the podcast, which is crazy because I know that a huge amount of people that watch Gentleman's Collective are golfers. But just in a nutshell, please do explain for people what you do at Sub 70 and where your passion for the sport and being involved in the equipment came from.
Yeah, so I'll kind of give you the history first. I love golf. I've been around it my whole life, 17 years old. I'm 53 now, so I've yet to have a real job in life. I'm trying to keep it that way. But played in high school, played in college, then realized in college I'm never going to go pro, just not good enough. So I wanted to get on the business side of stuff so I could stay around, the thing that I loved. So when I was lucky, I was graduating from college in the 90s. Mid-90s when the internet was coming out. So you could sort of see where this could kind of go and how you could reach people. So I started a golf component company called Diamond Tour Golf, and we sold the shafts, the grips, and the heads, and had a website up in 96. So I've been around it my whole life, and you kind of keep fast forwarding, to 2015 and 16. Sub 70 came out of the movement of direct-to-consumer brands. So Sub 70 Golf is a golf club company, but we're not in normal retail stores. It's in the capacity of a direct-to-consumer brand. So we custom build everything in Sycamore and send it to you. And in the 2015, 16, you started to see brands like Shinola for watches and leather goods. You saw Combatant Gentlemen in suits starting to be these more boutique brands, high-end service, cool vibe that were going direct-to-consumer. So we thought that would be an interesting space to kind of take this boutique build, everything hand-done, and then we could offer a better value or price because there's not two people having to make a profit on it. It's just from us to you. And it's also from a branding standpoint, we thought it'd be interesting because we could kind of control the marketing and the messaging more, for us having the relationship. So we use like a Nordstrom level of customer service, but with the direct to consumer model to when we build these clubs for you to make sure they're built, just like we did your set, where they're built just for you, that the way, that customer should have them done. So It's different than golf. A lot of the call them bigger golf companies, or I shouldn't say bigger, traditional. We're definitely growing that we are direct to consumer, and everything is hand built. You can't go to a store and just pick it up off the rack. So that's kind of the backdrop story of.
Who are some of the more famous people or well-known people that you've made clubs for?
Oh gosh, John Daly. He plays our stuff. Trying to think of non-golfers. Of some interesting some actors out of Hollywood. I'm trying to think sports figures, right? So Mike Eruzione of the Olympic hockey, he scored the goal in 1980 for us to beat the Russians. We built clubs for him. Drew Butera from the White Sox. There's guys from Hollywood, athletes, stuff like that we've been fortunate to kind of meet through somebody else. And when those guys call, it's always kind of a cool thing to be able to build golf clubs for them or something like that. And I've been very fortunate. I've met a lot of really smart, interesting, fun people to be around through this line of work. So I'm very lucky of what I get to do for a living.
Yeah. Do you think that there's a certain personality type that is attracted to golf? Like, what commonalities do you find among golfers?
You got to have a little OCD in you. Because it's so hard to do, as you well know, really well. And then at times you'll do it well, and then at times you'll be bad, no matter what level you're at. And then you have to grind through the bad to figure out how to get where you want to be again. So there's a little bit of this OCD of I got to figure it out. And I think you have to have some, along with that, you also have to have kind of some patience and a long-term commitment to it. But it's usually, there's a little OCD of trying to master something you're never going to master, yet you're willing to keep going back to it to try to figure it out, right? I don't think if you had the curiosity of trying to figure it out, or that little thing in you that's I got to do this, I think golf could be very frustrating for people.
It definitely isn't the most instantly gratifying sport. And I think what's also interesting about it is most of the time spent playing golf isn't actually playing the sport, right? It's actually the walking, the conversation on the cart, the kind of the culture around golf. Do you think that's a big part of its appeal socially, especially for men? You know, historically, it's kind of been the game of business, right?
I think so, especially as you get into your career, right? So let's say college is over and the frat house isn't there anymore. And now let's just say you're 26 or 27. The golf course kind of becomes the guy's hangout place, right? And you might go out to bars and restaurants afterwards, but in the afternoon on a Saturday, you meet up with the guys, then you go out. So it kind of turns into your frat house or clubhouse. And you can be 60 years old, you can be 50, or you can be 20s. But like when you start working, there is that outlet for it. So I think if you I'm speaking for myself, and I think a lot of people who play golf follow this. Yes, I love to play golf, but a part of it is the going out, the hanging out, the grabbing dinner afterwards, giving each other some crap, right? The back and forth, and the hang, and have a few cocktails. Like that's as appealing as the golf part. And I think that's why so many people fall into it as they maybe get into their business careers, or they get, moving through life. Maybe in college you don't play as much, there's enough going on, but it's a sport you can also play where your body's not going to get, if you're playing college football, like you're not going to do that unless you're playing in the NFL when you're 28. And golf's a game you can play for a lifetime and still be competitive with it. So I think the social aspect and the friendship aspect is a huge part of the draw, in my opinion.
I definitely agree. And I think I've noticed that when let's say you just put your name down, for a tee time, you might get paired with an 80-year-old, you might get paired with a little kid and his dad, you could get paired with a guy your own age. And it's a great kind of unifier, I think, of men from all different kinds of backgrounds, all different age categories. They find a commonality and they find conversation from being on the golf course together.
You're naturally going to have something in common, right? Odds are, if you're out there, you love golf. And there's, because you well know, so many friendships have gotten made and even tighter. I'm trying to word the right word. I've made so many friendships from an introduction on the golf course of guys who have become really close to, all from golf. Right. And I think the golf culture has a tendency to do that for people, where it brings people together. There is the commonality. They love the sport. But usually, when you're hanging around a golf course, it's usually going to be a good group to hang out with.
Growing up in the UK, I played golf from a pretty young age, but it definitely wasn't the cool sport back then, especially over in the UK. I've observed a kind of change in just golf culture and the way that golf is perceived in the US, probably since the pandemic. What have you observed about, especially among young people, and their attitude and their embrace of the sport?
I think it's refreshing. I think, I'm 53, so let's take the guys, 35 and under, 30 and under. I think they have as much fun playing golf as anybody I've ever seen. It's the experience, right? It's getting the music going, which I love. It's having a cocktail. It might not be as serious of the golf all the time, but they make it a fun event. So I think what the next generation is doing is making golf fun. I smile watching those younger guys do it. And I would even consider myself, if you ask me, would I rather play with music going on, cocktails flowing, carts moving all over and having a good time, or let's call it old school style, stuffy sort of golf? Mm-hmm. I'd rather hang with the 30-year-olds and do it and have a blast with it. So I think it's been a wonderful reset of golf to make it as much fun as you can have, right? Because none of us really do it for a living. It should be fun. It shouldn't be like a grind, right? This should be fun. We're out there to have fun with it.
Yeah. Do you think if that shift hadn't happened in the culture of golf, do you think that the sport would be maybe struggling a bit in its popularity among younger people?
Yes, I think that change needed to happen, and you needed that surge after COVID of the younger people to come in and kind of say, this is what we want, and then that's percolated kind of through golf. And then I would argue people my age can sort of, if you're somewhat open and this is fun, I enjoy what they've brought to golf. So then I think it kind of cross-pollinates through other generations that this doesn't need to be this stuffy or serious. We can have fun while we're doing it. So I mean, when I was 28 years old, you couldn't bring music on the golf course, right? Like it was, you'd get thrown out for doing it. So I think it's been fantastic for, say your generation of what you guys have brought to it, because I think it makes the game more appealing, and it broadens the horizons for other people to play. It's probably not as intimidating to start off with, right? It's not as serious.
That's true. I think what intimidated people about golf before was not just how difficult the sport is, but the fear of doing things incorrectly on the golf course.
Yep. There's all these
I've also
rules,
noticed that
right?
it's become way more popular with... Yeah. I've also noticed it's become way more popular with women over the last few years.
Yeah. Well, I think the culture's changed, right? It's not like I'm going to leave my girlfriend or wife at home and go play golf. I think that's a great thing as well, that you're kind of doing it with your girlfriend or your wife, or it's not like, take a private club. It used to kind of be like, the boys are supposed to hang with the boys. And we talked about that earlier, and there's a spot for that, and it's still fun. But I loved having my wife come out, and she doesn't really want to play 18 holes, but play a quick 9 holes, then grab a cocktail afterwards. And I think it is great to have your better half out there playing. And as long as, like, take my wife, for instance, she's enjoyed it more once it got a little bit lighter. Music can be played, bring your drinks out on the golf course, right? So that atmosphere has also, I think, brought women golfers into it, that it's not so stuffy and boring. It can be fun and lighthearted. And I think that's why you're seeing a resurgence of women playing as well. It's just more fun.
Yeah. Who are some of your favorite golfers, both from the history and now, that not necessarily for their playing style, but for their sportsmanship, their personality? Who do you really enjoy learning about and watching?
I mean, like, Ben Hogan is my, is the favorite golf swing, and he just carried himself with such class and dignity from that era, right? I mean, he was just dressed like a gentleman. It looked like Ben Hogan. I just think of, like, first class, and, like, it's Mr. Hogan, right? I love that era of that, the style and the way those guys carried themselves from that period of time. The guys who I grew up and, with my heroes is like Tommy Armour III. I've gotten to be friends with him. He plays our sub-70 clubs, but, he was one of my heroes. There was nobody cooler than TA3. He always had the beautiful girl on his arm, played great golf. He looked great in the clothes. He kind of looked like a mixture of James Bond and John Wayne walking down the golf course. You could, it looked like TA3. So those were kind of like, from when Fred Couples, like, those guys had a vibe. As you get, I love the way Scotty Scheffler and Rory and those guys play, but as you get older, when they get younger, there's not that same mystique as when you're a kid, right? And, when you get an autograph from Tommy Armour III, it's like, that's my hero, right? You can't believe you meet him. So I'm still nostalgic for the guys, and I've gotten to meet a lot of them, which has been great, but the guys who I grew up really, really admiring, Mr. Hogan from another era, and then my favorite was TA3. Man, he had great quote: "Look good, feel good, play good." That's from Tommy Armour III, right? So any guy saying that,
I've heard that quote before.
He figured it out quick, and he's a great player.
One of my favorite photos, I might get it put up in this office actually, is of Ben Hogan and Arnold Palmer waiting for the fairway to clear, just smoking their cigarettes on the tee box.
Old school, yeah. Like, they don't make them like that anymore, right? That classic smoking pics, and they look great, right? They just looked like general. It just the way they, that era of how they dressed and how they looked, the clothes fit perfect. Like, it almost looks like the picture was just taken, but wouldn't you agree? It looks like it's set up. They look so damn handsome.
Right. It looks like it's a kind of fashion art editorial, but they're actually playing golf. I wonder if, you mentioned that some of these golfers today maybe don't carry some of the same mystique for you. Maybe it's because you're not a kid anymore. But I also wonder, with golf being much more commercialized, as every sport is, and with social media, I question whether these players today also just have the freedom to create those kind of mysterious personalities, or like they feel like they have to be kind of watered down to be accepted as, you know, mainstream sponsorable sportsmen today.
There's no question, right? I mean, the risk reward of being outside of that box, that you're not marketable, would cost you millions of dollars, right? And I think like the social media part, you know, the difference is like no one really knew Mr. Hogan. There was a mystique. They call it the Hogan mystique. So sometimes having less was more, you know? So, you know, now with social media, you can get an idea of what they want you to see in their lives, and they're a little bit more open. But, you know, when I was growing up and watching those golfers, not knowing everything made it a little bit more of a mystique of they just had this aura on a golf course. You didn't get to see them behind the curtain. You saw what you saw on TV or watching them play live, which I think at some level is advantageous too, where they're going to give you what you want. And I would think in the 80s and the 90s, you had more personalities and players weren't all the same sort of corporate cutout a little bit too. You could get away with being a little bit more unique, right? Which made different personalities. There was more good guys and guys who got mad and heels and good guys. Like made it interesting. And now they're pretty much, and I'm sure their teams are talking to them about, these are the boundaries we need to stay in. So IBM will give me a contract. So, you know, you don't get as much, would it be like, personality as much, maybe?
Yeah,
they're a little bit more of a vanilla sundae.
Yeah, I mean, probably the biggest exception to this from the last, I mean, he's quite old now, isn't he? But, you know, John Daly is probably the modern golfer that people would think of as having the most personality. What do you think it is about him that has, you know, allowed him to have that longevity and also, you know, commercial appeal within his own lane? You know, it might not be IBM sponsoring him, but I'm sure he's doing very well with his sponsors.
I think golf, first off, he's authentic. And I know John pretty well. And the guy you see is who you get. That is him. He's a real person. And you can tell he's a good soul. People love him because they think they could have a beer with him and he would be fun and kind to hang out with, on top of his talents and abilities and everything else. And that is true. So authenticity, people can smell authenticity. And that guy is as American, as authentic as you can get. And I all think we wish we could drink 10 beers, smoke 2 packs of cigarettes, and still shoot 5 under par and have his ability, right? So there's also this, like, how does he do it? He's like as American as apple pie, like people. Yeah. But I think the core of it is he's authentic, and people recognize how authentic he is. And in private, is the same guy you see in the public. He's a really good guy.
I think that has happened in a lot of sports where, as you mentioned, people aren't, you know, smoking cigarettes on the course and drinking beers before they go out to play. And that's happened in every sport. You know, every sportsman in every different domain is now weightlifting, taking their diet very seriously. They're not smoking. They're barely drinking, if at all. Have you seen that trickle down to amateur golfers and how seriously they take the rest of their life so that they can perform better?
I think I still think the average, not average, even like the better than average golfer, like I don't think we take it serious as it hasn't fully gone into that, in the sense that we still hopefully want to have fun with it. For those guys, it's a business. I still think there is overall trend lines, if you just kind of watch people's health and what's going on, that I think there are some things that have come to the forefront that make people think a little bit more about their longevity and their health. And, you know, do you limit the amount of alcohol? And working out's a good thing. If you watch, you know, compared to say 1975, where no one probably did anything, right? But smoked and drank and stayed out late. So but I don't know if it's golf or it's every other sport, to your point, that it's translated into every one of these guys or female athletes who are professional athletes. It's like a 24/7, 365 thing. And because they're so great, and every sportsman, no matter what sport they're playing, is better than they've ever have been. The athletes are better. I think just watching what they do, a little bit of that trickles down into our lives of trying to, you know, I can speak for myself. Like, I take care of myself way better now than I did in 1996. In the 90s, no one really, I mean, it was the last of the generation of smoking cigarettes, staying out late and having fun. And, now it's way less drinking and, more time. I would joke I spend more time in the gym than I do the bar anymore.
Yeah, I'm trying to bring it back, Jason. I'm trying to bring it back.
I can. I'm 53. If I don't, it's great. Time is already not on my side. So to try to feel like I can still do it and move well and do that stuff, I got to put more effort in, and I have to watch what I eat. Well, now, of course, I don't live like a professional athlete, like I'm having a scotch now, but it won't go late tonight, and I'll be up in the morning and working out. So I think from seeing sports get taken to a new level of how good the athletes are in every sport, it trickles down into people's lives of what are they, if you want to be better longer, what you have to do to take care of yourself.
A quick thank you to today's sponsor, Ota. Ota is one of those brands that I've been a paying customer of long before they were interested in sponsoring the show, which is why I'm so happy to bring them to you today. If you're into menswear at all, shirts, ties, cufflinks, the things that really elevate an outfit, Ota has an incredible selection of both classic designs and more modern, expressive pieces. The company was founded by two brothers down under, and I can tell you, these guys truly care about their customers and creating the best products around. They also do fast worldwide shipping. Ota is offering a discount for listeners of the Gentleman's Collective podcast. Use the code JamesLawley10 at ota.com for a 10% discount. If you are upgrading your wardrobe this year, start with one of their shirts, neckties, or cufflinks. They make a bigger difference than most people realize. So that's JamesLawley10 at ota.com for 10% off. I think it's an interesting psychological sport as well, because I think anecdotally every golfer's had the experience where they have a few beers on the course and they're maybe a little buzzed and they actually play better because they're no longer overthinking every shot. Like people have this when they play pool as well in the bar. It's like the more I drink, I'm actually seem to be getting better at, obviously to a point, but there's definitely a psychological element to that, which maybe some of the older players actually understood.
Oh yeah, I mean, right before all of the life coaches and psychological thing, a couple swigs of whiskey and to start the round off would put your mind in the right spot. Golf Digest actually did an article on that of people, taking drinks and having THC, whatever you want to do with it. And like to your point, there was a limit where it got worse, but people did play better, slightly buzzed up, because you just loosen up, right? Now, that's amateur golfers. Also professional athletes, they've trained themselves to be in this position all the time, so they can get in that zone, and that's their office where, if you and I are playing under pressure, like we don't do this for a living, probably a couple drinks makes you feel a little smoother and a little bit better, right? So I think you'll see people doing that still a little bit. It's just the late night probably doesn't go as late as it used to in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, right? That's the difference. You might have a couple of drinks on the golf course, but then you're not carrying it over to one in the morning as much anymore.
I remember we were talking about this when we were having steaks, and I was discussing this topic recently with a guest called Rob Henderson about just how the younger generation of men are not going out to the bars as much, not drinking as much, and perhaps actually what the negative effect of that might be. I mean, as somebody that has sons that are going to be of drinking age in the future and going to be entering that world, do you look at it as, I want you guys to go and have those experiences and be social and, have fun? Or do you kind of like that the younger generation is more health conscious?
Oh, shit, no. In your 20s, go out, be social, build your social network up, be around girls, be with the guys. Your liver will figure it out. I would encourage them, and I don't mean go out and get sloppy drunk.
No.
But this is just my personal opinion. My personal opinion is it's gone too far. And you only get one swing at this thing, man. Like, you only get one swing at life. And I had so much fun in my 20s going out. And it was the 90s, in the early 2000s. It was probably a little too much. But I think it's going the other way a little too, on the other side of it, where I think having going out, being social, not sitting in your room on a phone all the time. There are benefits to just being out at a bar or a club or a restaurant. You don't have to get shit-faced. But to sit inside and not live life, I think it's gone too much the other way. I'm going to encourage my kids, within reason, to go out, explore the world, travel the world, stay out late sometimes, and build that social network of people. And that's how you might meet. I met my wife at a bar. I mean, it's old school, and I mean, she was working there, and you had to be smooth enough to give her your phone number, right? And it. I don't know if that art is going to be lost, right? Like, you had to make her laugh. You had to make her smile. You had to charm her enough to be like, okay, all right. You wore her out by the end of the night when she's like, I'll give you your number. You seem like you'd be fun to go out with. And I'm afraid, like, the younger generation is going to lose that touch of, I think it's gone a little too much the other way. Your liver will be fine. And most people don't turn into alcoholics. Most people go at it pretty good. Then you get in your 30s and you calm it down a little bit, and people have lived to 80 to 90 years old doing it that way for 1,000 years.
That's what I realized. I look at all these kind of icons of yesteryear that are maybe only just now starting to pass away, and you think, this guy lived till 90 and he was basically drinking half a bottle of whiskey every night for 20 years. I think I'm gonna be okay. Actually, I think I can have those beers.
Most people can handle it, right? But I just think it's gone too much the other way, that they don't go out at all, right? No. And I don't know. I mean, you've had some great nights going out in a Charleston or something like that. Like, you're only going to live once, right? And you got to enjoy the ride and experience it and take it all in. And like, some of the best stories I have in my life are going out and a late night happening, right? Like,
oh gosh, yeah.
I have no regrets on it, but I've slowed down. Every decade, I take care of myself a little bit more time in the gym and eating even better. And like, if you manage it, what does the French have a saying or something, right? It's like everything in moderation a little bit. I mean, you're from the UK, you're right next to them, but right, there's a...
We're not so on the moderation element when it comes to booze, actually, but...
well, you're in your 20s, you'll be all right. But I think, you can do it in moderation, and still make it work.
Yeah. You can. And I think it's interesting that this generation of young men is very characterized by just anxiety as a general feeling. And it's like, well, no wonder, because you are making yourself worried about a lot of things. And to all the men that, have, we call it now, approach anxiety. Like, men have always had that. We used to call it Dutch courage, where you have a couple of beers and your approach anxiety goes away, or it subsides a little bit,
Look, you can't be afraid of rejection. Like, you got to just keep swinging at the baseball, man.
Yeah.
Like, I would have not met my wife and had my 2 kids, and I love my wife, and she's beautiful. And I mean, she's still, we've been together since 2000. She's still beautiful. If I didn't have enough courage to go up and talk to the bartender who gets hit on all the time.
Yeah.
And if she would have shot me down, I'd be like, okay. Like, you got to just get used to that. And I mean, think about it. When there was no dating apps or anything when I was in my 20s, like, you had to approach girls and talk to them. Like, there was no other way around it. And if you weren't model good looking, like, I think I'm reasonably good looking, but I'm not Brad Pitt, you had to develop a game to make them smile and make them feel comfortable and have fun with you and look like you're not a threat or something. You had to, like, of course, like, I'm not, but you had to hone your game. And honing your game, you were going to get rejected sometime, and you had to be able to live with it. And I think it's a huge part of life, because, like, life is hard, man. Like, a lot of things you're going to get rejected in, if it's job or career or a date, and you got to be able to, like, get yourself off the floor a little bit. And if you get punched in the gut, you got to keep moving on, because you're going to have heartache and headaches and problems your entire life. It's never going to go perfect. And it's like, how do you react to when bad things happen? Kind of creates what your life's going to be, in my opinion.
I think it does. And probably the hardest thing about today's era is when things don't go your way, when you do get rejected, when you get knocked down, there are many more comforts there. If it was in the 90s, the pre-internet era, you can't find a girl who wants to sleep with you. You're like, well, shit, I gotta get back out there, otherwise it's just like my dad's one VHS that I found, stuff behind the back of the sofa. Whereas now guys are like, well, okay, I've got like my virtual girlfriend on my, on OnlyFans, and I've got like my food delivered to me, like I like all of these things that kind of satiate those needs. Whereas before it was just kind of a brutal black and white thing that I think kept people, even people that were very anxious or weren't very confident, it just made them get back in the game.
You had to do it, right? There was no alternative. Where now you're correct. There's an easy button to hit, literally the button on your phone, and you can make it easy, right? And I get the appeal and stuff, but I'm very grateful in the era I grew up in, because I've seen the modern technology, which is great. But I also, in my 20s, you still had to go out there and do it. And I think with my two boys, we're 13 and 16. My wife and I we don't try to be helicopter parents. We try to let them figure it out. We'll give them some advice, but they got to go and do it, because eventually they're going to leave the house, and I want them to be able to like function in life, and be good people and figure it out on their own. Like, my job is to eventually get them out there and let them be men, and I'm trying to encourage them as much as I can to go kind of be free, live free. Don't be afraid, right? Most all things are fixable, right? So don't live scared, and go and experience life as much as you can. And you are going to get knocked down. You will have problems. And you just got to have the mental fortitude to break through it, because that's just life. It's not all perfect.
I think it's better to be a bit fearless, or like maybe a little bit dumb, and get knocked down and get humiliated a few times, rather than the other way around, where you start off very, very afraid. It's hard to break out of that cycle, I think. I would say that sometimes I've been naive, and therefore I've done things not knowing how hard they would be. But the process of figuring it out has humbled me, and then I have more of a kind of balanced point of view.
And you become smarter. Think of that learning curve when you go through those situations. Even if you fail coming out the other side, of how much that goes in the hard drive, and you kind of go, I remember that, and it wasn't as bad as I thought it was at the time. I learned a lot from it, and that's how you turn negatives into positives, right? Where if you can take how something. Now, of course, there's no positive if you lose a child or a tragedy of a young wife. I'm not talking about those sort of things. I'm talking the stuff you can literally get over. And when you look back, it wasn't as bad as you think. And a lot of times you can view that in one of two lenses, either negative or positive. And I try to view that as best I can, of things that are, a kick to the gut, can also be net positive once you get out on the other side of it.
Absolutely. When you started your company, you kind of talk about it like it was very happy-go-lucky, of the internet was just out, so you were able to like jump on that. But I'm sure there was a lot of people at the time that were very skeptical of the whole thing and questioned its longevity and legitimacy. Like, what kind of backlash or doubts did you encounter back then?
Definitely from my professors when I was in college. I thought I was crazy. In the 90s, when I graduated from school, the economy was booming. So you could go on and got a corporate job. They were hiring everybody. And when I tried to explain this project I had and what I was going to do, and I wasn't going to go to the job interviews, they thought I was crazy. But once again, I was 21 years old, almost 22 when it got started. So you're young, you're hungry, to your point, you're fearless at that point in time, or naive, or all of it, right? But I truly thought I could do it. I truly thought I could do it and make this work. And thank God I had the guts, or the fearlessness, or the being naive, probably a combination of all of it. Then I was like, well, what's the worst that's going to happen? I'm already broke. I'll just go broke and then get a corporate job. I have a college degree. So what's the worst that was going to happen to me is I had, no girlfriend, no children, low overhead. The worst that would happen, the very worst, is it fails. Okay. I can live with that. I can live with that failing.
Yeah.
And that was my mindset. But I worked hard. Like, you had to put the effort in, right? Like, there were people going out in downtown Chicago and I was working at night, but I was committed to it. But I truly thought I could do it. And I give my parents credit because they didn't dissuade me from doing it. They said, you can do this. You're smart enough to do this. So, you know, I definitely had some people thinking I was nuts, but then the people around me said, you got this. Like, let's go at it. So I was fortunate from that standpoint of having family support.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't tell my family until I had already quit my job about my whole social media endeavors. They knew that like I was doing something because, you know, I would talk, like I was busy all the time and I had extra money, so I didn't want them thinking I was a drug dealer or something. But I never told them because I just didn't want anybody's opinion to affect what I was going to do. And even though I thought I didn't care, I just knew like there might be this little nagging thing in the back of my mind of like, what if your dad thinks this is bullshit? Now it turns out he didn't. But that was something for me that if anybody's thinking of doing something like this, like remember, you don't actually need to get permission from people. Like you can just do it, and by the time they find out, then it's already successful, and you know they don't have any, they won't have anything to say about it because you proved it already.
In the same token, if you don't take the risk, how will you ever know? Like I said, you know, it's also being the perspective of being 53 years old, but like you only get one twirl at this. You get one twirl in your 20s, you get one twirl in your 30s, you get, and you don't, I didn't personally want to be 85 years old going, should have, would have, could have. Even if I failed, and I failed at things, but you like, it just, like my gut was telling me like if we because the odds have been in my favor, like the businesses we've done have been successful, right? So it's worked overall. So then there's also a confidence of like we have a good team, we know what we're doing, and not to do it, not to push on it, not to go hard, and not to try. It would be like I'm just leaving too much on the table, and I don't want to do that when I'm 85. I want to be 85 and be like, I gave it a hell of a run. And it just,
and
I didn't, you know.
Even if things don't actually go to plan, or you know, I've made some decisions that I would say if I could go back now, knowing everything that I know and who I am now, I would not have done that, or I would have made a different decision. However, in that parallel universe, that version of me grows older and regrets not having done it. You know, he regrets not having tried it, having not had the balls. So it's one of those things that, you know, you'll only have that perspective from having gone for it.
100%. And like I said, I've had enough failures too, where I've lived through those, and I realize it's a very good quote. It's never quite as bad as you think it is once you look back at it, right? When it's really bad, when you look back a year later, it's like, okay, it really wasn't that bad. And if you kind of have that perspective, it allows you to take those risks and live with it a little bit easier, right? Because it's really never going to be quite that bad. Yeah, and it's like I said, my wife's encouraging, so I'm lucky, you know. And my friends, even when I graduated from college, like my friends thought it was a great idea. It was kind of the older generation. It was like, what the hell, the internet thing? Like, you sure this is gonna, you know? But my contemporaries were like, yeah, like this. They could see where it was going. Like I, you know, roommates who were computer science majors. Like if you were in it, you could see. I mean, the real geniuses brought it to a huge level, like a Bezos or something. Like, I just didn't want to get a regular job until I could do my niche. But you could see where it was going.
If you're enjoying this podcast, you will love the Gentleman's Digest. This is our weekly newsletter sent straight to your inbox, packed with insights and recommendations. You'll find the link to become a reader in the description.
Something that I experienced this year, I'm going from 27 to 28, which it seems like a very insignificant birthday, right? But I had this feeling of the kind of dress rehearsal, fucking about period of my 20s. I started to feel like that's over. Of like, oh, actually, this is, as you say, you only get one shot at this life. And you've experimented with lots of different things, but now let's like actually just really stick to a plan for a while. Like, I felt like the testing period was over. Did you have any kind of pivots like that in perhaps your late 20s, early 30s?
Yeah, 100%. And then I think that's when I met my wife, right? So I was 27 when I met her. She was 22. And I'm glad I was 27, because I think at that point in time, exactly where you're saying where you're at, I was at that spot too. Where it was like, I'm more open to this. I'm more open to, you know, hey, I'll be 28 here. I think it was pretty close to 28 when I met her. Like 30's coming. And, you know, like you start, you meet somebody of my wife's quality. And I may have not appreciated everything she was then and still is today when I was 24. But I think, you know, because you're just worried about going out and traveling and having fun, and it's, oh, she's a beautiful girl, but whatever, there's 9 million beautiful girls. So I think as you get in your late 20s, at least what you're saying, and I was in the same boat, that things start to change a little bit. And I think for me, it was a really good. Like, I was glad I was in that state of mind when I met her, because I was willing to pay, you know, make that commitment, put the time in, and I knew how wonderful she was. And you're kind of like, you had enough experience with other girlfriends and relationships where it's like, this one seems pretty good. Like, I'm going to put the time and effort in. My career was progressing, right? I'd been doing it for 5 or 6 years at that point. So you have some capital, you have some stability, you kind of know where you're going. Like, I kind of say, like, at that point, you start to turn into a man. Like, you kind of know which direction you're going. And, you know, for me, I met my partner at the right time.
It's interesting that you mentioned the wife, because I definitely had that experience where when I was in relationships when I was younger, it doesn't really matter who it was. I just wasn't in a place where I was okay being with that same person for the rest of my life. Like, I was on a warpath, you know, and nobody was coming with me. I had to go on that journey alone. And as you say, it's only you think there's 9 million other women out there. I think you have to, you know, I'm not saying you have to sleep with a bunch of people, but you have to date or get to know quite a lot of them as well before you realize what qualities you actually cherish and the type of person that you might idealize or romanticize. It's only when you actually date them and you go, you know what? I really am not actually that impressed by you, or, you know, I'm actually really impressed by somebody else that I thought I would never particularly be interested in. That's when, like, the perspective gets rounded to, as you mentioned, like when you met your wife, she was a woman of a certain quality that you realize, you know what, this is what I want. I think there's the kind of data collection period that happens for a lot of men before they can really make that decision.
100%. Like, I had to have some go bad and for lack of a better word, date other people to realize how impressive she was. Not only from a look standpoint, but also, you know, personality standpoint, and how quality of a person she was. And like, then you start qualifying people like, yes, they have to be beautiful, you have to be attracted to them, but is this person going to add value to my life? Like, could I see me? Of course, you don't know after 2 weeks, but like, I had a pretty good idea pretty quick. Like, wow, like, she is on it. She's, you know, beautiful. She's smart. She's fun. She's, you know, wants to travel the world. Like, it aligned very quickly to values and things that I respected in her. And then you've had enough failures and you're getting close to 30 and you're kind of like, maybe this is probably the one. And of course, you don't act like a psych. You know, it took us 3 years to get engaged. I didn't get married till I was 31. But you kind of knew. You kind of knew that she doesn't come along every day. And I needed that period from 18 years old to almost 28 to probably truly appreciate how great she was. And still is to this day. So I made a good decision. She's a wonderful wife, great mom. But by being a little bit older, I think that it gave me that perspective that I might not have. I know I wouldn't have had it at 23 or 24.
Yeah, it's so nice to hear you, and I've had other guests and just friends, when somebody's married and they talk about their wife in such a positive way and everything they say is so loving and kind. It's so refreshing. I think for men, there's like a stereotype of the wife being the ball and chain, or, you know, kind of like negative talk about marriage. It's so refreshing, I think, for men to hear somebody praise their wife so publicly. Like, nobody knows who she is. Like, we don't know what she looks like or anything about her, but it's just so nice to hear you say that.
Well, you should be each other's biggest fan.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I want her to enjoy life, to do great, to be happy, right? And like, if you're not your partner's biggest fan and rooting for them in life in general, like to do, to be happy and fulfilled, my wife is not the, not the ball and chain. Like, and I think a lot of that's stereotypical, and I'm sure people, can have a tough relationship, and it can probably get to that point on both sides, bringing negativity into the relationship. And you still have to learn how to argue, and you have to learn your limits, and you have to learn what also works for the other person, because marriage isn't perfect, and you have to learn your skill set of, even when things are negative a little bit, to not let them get bad. But no, I'm her biggest fan. I think if people had that perspective a little bit more, where they really are rooting for their partner, it helps the marriage, because there's no jealousy. She likes to travel to Europe. She's going on her own. I'm not pissed. It's like, I'll stay home with the boys. Go do it. Like, you're never going to go to, no one's ever going to be 85 and go like, oh, fuck, I went to France too many times. It's never going to happen. Right? Like, no one's ever going to lay there. The oxygen machine's on, and you're like, well, I shouldn't have taken the 11th trip to Paris. Right? Like, yeah, it's not going to happen. So, like, and she's the same with me, of like, gives me the freedom and the time to go build this, and I give her freedom and time, and then we still have a great time when we travel together and do date night and stuff like that. But we also give each other space a little bit, because that's what works for our relationship, and that's what works for her too. And then, like, you root for each other. But no, I to your point, marriage does not have to be the absolute cliche of, after 20 years the passion's gone, you don't want to see her, she's not like, no. But as a guy, I try to work on too, of like, when we go out for date night, I always try as much as I can to not make it like, I try to make it date night still. So imagine I was that guy who still needs to open the car door, to be respectful, to take her out, and to, try to make her night great. I try not to take her for granted. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. And I think that what I'm getting from you is that obviously picking the right person is fundamentally important, but I also think that you have taken that responsibility of being a good husband seriously, and that has like reaped its benefits for a really long time for you as a couple.
I think when you, as a guy, when you stand in front of all those people, and it's her day, like when you get married, I mean, she's the center of attention, and at least to me, I owed it to her to be the best version of myself, and grow as a human, to give her the space when she needs it, and to become a better human, and always trying to improve, right? Like, I once again, not take her for granted. Like, if you take her for granted, that's when stuff can kind of go bad. That, oh, what's she gonna do, leave? Or, I mean, it's an extreme example, but I think, like, I felt like I owed that to her. I owed that to the relationship. Or don't get married.
Yeah, well, I think it's a type of presence, and both men and women, what we want is to feel seen, to feel desired, to feel important, to feel interesting, to... and you have the ability to make somebody feel that way, but there's a big difference between feeling that deep down and actually showing it. Like, just because you feel that you love her, and you feel that she's intelligent, you feel that she's important, if you're just sitting on the sofa, like on your World of Warcraft every night, not paying her attention, then you may as well not feel those things, because it's wasted. It only actually is. It's only real when you make it real with your actions, and words can be a form of action. But I think it's actually the act of loving somebody or being a good husband that leads to a successful relationship, not just the feeling or the thought.
Don't stop dating, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Don't stop dating her. Yeah. And that's the key. And when you have kids too, it's important. Like, you go out with the girls one night. Like, I've got the kids. Like, let her, because it's over. Well, we had kids 2 years apart, right? So when they're little, like, she still like needs to go out and have fun with her friends and not be like, there's a lot of pressure they're under. You gotta recognize that too, and like step up and be like, just go out, or take a weekend and go to Chicago, or take a night and go to Chicago and get out of here, right? And that's important too, that you kind of can see what they're going through and being like, she's with those kids all the time, like give her a little bit of a break and let her have a fun night out. So don't stop dating. Also, try to look from, I always tried as best I can. I'm sure I've failed many times, but try to look from her perspective too, of what does she need for me to be happy, as best I can. You can't make somebody else happy, but I can certainly try to put the marriage in the best position to succeed.
If you're enjoying this podcast, you might like to know that we also have a private members club for like-minded modern gentlemen all over the world. You'll find the link to apply in the description.
I mean, you're in the golf business, but really I think that you're in the relationship business, and you're in the business of being interested in making other people's enjoyment of the sport great. Like if you didn't like people, or you weren't interested in people, your business wouldn't work. I don't think, right? You have to have that kind of personality. Do you think that those kind of skills in business and in your marriage are quite intertwined?
Yes. I love people. I do. I can go sit at an airport and talk to people, and I'm on an airplane. I find people really interesting. I find the world mostly good, not negative, right? Like with all the stuff going on with our politics, like it's sad to me, because if you just watch people in a setting on an airplane together, for example, use that again, most people are still caring for each other. They don't know how you vote. And most humans I've seen from around the world are good people. Yeah. So I like meeting new people. I like traveling. I like seeing different things. And I agree with you. Like it's a pleasure for me to talk to our customers. We were hosting an event at the 70 today. I had so much fun meeting a bunch of new people, and it's genuine. Like I'm probably put myself, like I'm not the best at reading a spreadsheet. I put myself in a position where I do get to talk to people all the time and build human capital, which has helped the company, but it comes natural for me, and it's easy because I enjoy it. And, I hope it's turned in, but I would argue too in my marriage, never done anything terrible to bust it up or something, but you make all kinds of mistakes. You're still doing it with another human being, but hopefully as you get older, you don't make those same mistakes, and it grows and you get better at it. It's like everything, but yeah, I agree. Like, I think my wife, if she was sitting here, would say that I enjoy the relationship with people, and I'm in a job where that's a big part of my gig, and it probably comes across genuine because I really enjoy it.
It's very hard to fake. I mean, I think you can train yourself into it a little bit, or you can get yourself in the right frame of mind to do it, but you also can't fake it. I think one thing that I didn't really realize about when I started, basically just filming videos by myself, next thing you know, it turns into like really, and I don't just mean in the literal sense of like a members club, but I just mean the people that watch your videos are in a kind of community with each other. And then we've done events and things like that. But if you don't love those people and you don't genuinely want to serve them and enjoy talking with them, you're kind of in the wrong job. It's like I don't think there are that many jobs where it's not a huge asset to be interested in other people. Maybe there's like a software coder or something where you can just sit by yourself and do it, but it's probably becoming an increasingly rare skill today, and it's probably becoming an increasingly valuable skill, especially if you're hiring somebody that has the ability to get along with people is somebody that I would want to hire. Somebody that has no social skills, I would not even want to go down that road.
Yeah, and I always think you have to be open to change your mind, right? Like I also think you can't be so I only do X, Y, and Z, or my mind can't be changed. Like, how do you grow as a human from that, right? So I think you have to be like, even as you get older, you still try to be open and new ideas and new things of doing it, which can open up doors to experiences and things that you never thought you would be doing, right? And man, I hope I never lose that, because I have a great life and I truly enjoy it. And I agree with you, like, having people in our workplace that are fun to hang out with. Like, I enjoy going to my office. Like, we have a good time with it. Like, we get work done, but we try to make sure it's fun. And, you know, I love the people who work for us, and I truly care about them. And, you know, hopefully that comes across in what we do in our products and the customer service and everything we do. And I agree with you, and to the point, like, you know, you're right. It's me being able to serve them. I don't look at it as like, oh, well, you know, they called me, so whatever, I'll give you 2 minutes and I'm hanging up. Like, I'm humbled they call us, and I'm happy to help people. So I think that's a great perspective to have. And that's, to your point about like my boys, that's why I want them to travel, to go out a little bit late sometimes in their 20s, to meet a bunch of people, because I think that will serve them well the rest of their lives, as if they're good with people and they're kind, good human beings, people are going to want you around a little bit more.
Yeah, I think it's hard to learn that if you're not exposed to people a lot, and especially people from different cultures and people in different scenarios. Like, your experience of humanity is going to be very different in an office at 9 a.m. to in a bar at 2 a.m. Like, even if you were the exact same people, you will see completely different sides to them. And, you know, it's kind of affable to see that in everybody. And I always believe that even if somebody has a very different view politically or, you know, in their religion to me, I always believe that you think that because you think that that's what's best for the world. You know, you don't think this way because you hate people and therefore it's better if everybody suffers. You think that because that's genuinely what you think is best. So I'm going to try and understand your perspective. I might have a different perspective, but, you know, who am I to judge or dislike somebody because they think that way when they have the right intentions? You know, I think almost everybody has the right intentions.
I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, it's very, very true. There's no reason, you know, with, like I said, to take the political divide, it's people generally hate somebody on the other side anymore without even getting to know them or understanding their perspective, right? And I promise you, if you took two people battling on a Twitter account, and I bought them both a beer, and they sat with each other for an hour, and one person could be from California and one could be from Alabama, and at the end of it, they would be good if they could do it in person, and they'd have way more in common than they think they would.
Yeah, exactly. I'm very hesitant when it comes to dating, to like try and categorize each other's beliefs in the early stages. And even today on dating apps, you can put, you know, conservative, atheist, Buddhist, whatever. It's like, I don't want to do that. I don't want somebody to decide yes or no based on, you know, a selection that we've made on a category. Not that I even would say I fit into a lot of these categories anyway. And vice versa, when I meet somebody, like actually a girl that I'm dating right now, I would say is very, very left-wing in her views. And I'm like, okay, I don't agree with a lot of your views, but we've also had a totally different life, and I'm interested why you think that way. Like, I want to know, like, what were your experiences of life that has led you to think this way? I also know that it might change as mine has changed, and I'm sure it will continue to change as well. Like, I'm not trying to stick my flag in the ground and say, unless you follow this, I don't want anything to do with you, because I very well might not want anything to do with that flag in a year or two.
And this is my point of, like, being open to change. I reserve the right to change your mind, or my mind, right? Exactly. Because if you were just in that one place forever, life would get it'd be pretty vanilla, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Well, I think that's,
you know, if you don't.
Yeah. Intelligence to me is being able to receive information and change your behavior or your perspective as a result of the new information. If you're just a wall where everything new that happens, every new experience just bounces back off you, to me, that's not, you know, and I think we glamorize it as like strength or conviction these days, and especially politicians seem to get criticized a lot for having a kind of change of perspective. But you know, maybe they found things out, or maybe they experienced something that led them to change their perspective.
Well, that's the crazy part about the political side of it. I can't imagine being a politician, and if there was an idea, let's just for argument's sake say I ran as a Republican. Mm-hmm. But if a Democrat had a really great idea, I can't fathom I wouldn't be like, well, of course we can work on that together. Like, it seems crazy to me to just be so narrow in your focus that you can't go outside of that zone. you can't run a business successfully that way, right? You have to be open to new ideas, things going on, changes. Changes are happening constantly. So you have to be open, because what we're doing today is going to change in 2 years, 4 years, 5 years. It's constantly evolving.
Yeah.
So it's very strange to me, as divided as we are. Like you said, if I'd be the worst politician ever, because if I ran, I would be like, well, of course I would take other people's ideas and see if we can make it work out. And hell, one of those ideas might be better. And I'd be once again, I could change my mind and say, this is better than the idea I had. Let's go this direction. So that's part of life, right? I mean, I think that's how you grow as a human, is expand your horizons and never be you have such convictions on one side that you're never willing to look at a different angle or change.
Yeah.
Because life changes, life moves fast at you.
It does, and I think it's also easy to be blind to the influence that our time era is having on us. I would say that I think of myself as not really following a lot of the trends of Gen Z or 2026 or whatever it may be. But then also sometimes I think, if this was 2005, I wouldn't be wearing cowboy boots now. Like, that would be so uncool, So to an extent, I am a product of my my era, and I probably true for golf. Like, you would not have thought, let's get some music on and crack some beers on the golf course 15 years ago, because you would have been, worried about getting kicked off the course.
Correct. Yeah. But once again, it evolves, right? If you're not open to new doors and horizons, life's going to get pretty stale pretty quick, and you'll miss angles and things or opportunities too, right? Like, you have to be like a sponge and absorb it in, see what makes the most sense, and you kind of have a general course of going where you're at in life, but there's some little detours you might take, and I hope I'm always open for those detours a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Jason, thank you so much for making the time to chat today. Where can people go if they want to learn a bit more about Sub 70 and maybe get some clubs made?
Yeah, so go to sub70.com. My cell number is on there still. I still help people all the time. Our customer team, service team is great. So if anybody needs help with anything, from the website, email us, call, reach out. We're always glad to help you. And I've really enjoyed the conversation as well. It's always fun to catch up with James.
Likewise, Jason. Next time I'm back in Chicago, I'll let you know, and hopefully we can get those irons back on the course. I'm a little rusty, I have to say, but we'll get back out there.